So, starting recording, testing. Right, I'm recording. There we go. Oh, really? Schoolboy error. So I've got a backup. I'm also going to do a sound record on here just in case. Don't worry, I've been caught out myself so many times. I've learnt from my mistakes. Cool. Great. Hello? Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Russ. So my background, like you say, isn't in learning traditionally. So I've worked in digital marketing and social media sort of my whole career up until the last 4 or so years. So I studied film at university and moved to work in digital marketing in financial services and was really sort of into digital. So I'm a bit of a self-confessed nerd. I've always blogged, I've always been really into social media, and that sort of led me into marketing. So I started working in the digital marketing team at First Direct. I've then sort of moved around into e-commerce. And e-commerce is really sort of where I started to get a feel for the difference that an experience can make to what you're actually doing. And as you can probably imagine, in e-commerce, if someone can't find that checkout button, if they can't seamlessly get through your process, if every single bit of that service design doesn't work together, then users will go elsewhere and you won't make any money. And that's sort of what I started to get really into in terms of what I was working on. I then had the opportunity to join a team in learning, which was doing exactly that. They were trying to improve the way that learning was in terms of corporate learning. And I've always been sort of pretty frustrated with the way that what I do at work doesn't always mirror what I do in real life in terms of technology, and I saw it as a real opportunity to get involved with that and to really make a difference and to start to sort of shift the dial a little bit in terms of what we were doing. So yeah, absolutely not from a traditional learning background, but hopefully bringing some digital thinking and some marketing thinking to learning, and just trying to sort of move things along and make things better for people and make things easier for people to get involved with. This is a great question, and thank you for asking it. So this is the point that I sit at, I think, in the organisation, right at that sort of apex of tension between the user need and the business ask. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face when it comes to applying user experience design principles to learning. So I think historically, and I'm a relative newbie in terms of the world of learning, but in my experience what I've seen is that the business will very often come to the learning and development team and put an order in. They'll say, we want an e-learning, or we want a CBT, we want to do this. And actually, what I've found and what I've been really encouraged by is seeing teams getting to the point of where they're moving away from being that order taker and towards being a consultant, and being able to have the courage to challenge the business and say, is this what you really need? Are we thinking about that end user? And like you were saying, Owen, just putting the user at the heart of everything we do. And almost being brave enough to say, if we can't design this with users, for users, then we're going to step away. Because I think absolutely we are here in service of the business and to help the business achieve its strategy and its goals, but none of that is going to work if it doesn't work for the user. So if we're not putting the user at the heart of that design process, then no matter how much content the business tries to sort of feed to the user, it's never going to stick. So I think we need to really, like you said, put that user at the heart of everything that we do, and that's sort of the main tension, I think. And it is changing. I think the really positive thing is people do want to make a difference. People do want to help. No one comes to the party saying, I just want to force this content onto people. People genuinely do want to help and make a difference, but it's just a really different way of working for people. It's a mindset shift, and sometimes it's trying small things and showing that they work, or even that they don't work, and learning from them, and sort of taking people on that journey with you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, Erin. I think it's a really good point you make about speaking to users and listening to what they've got to say, more importantly than speaking to them. So one of the things that I've found works really well is to ask users what their concerns are. So don't ask them what they want, because you will always get back from the business, we can't ask people what they want, they don't know what they want, they don't know what they need, which is fine, that's true, but I think if you ask people what worries them on a day-to-day basis, when we ask you to do this task, what are the concerns that are going through your head? Is it that it's too hard, or you don't know where to find the information, or you don't know who to ask, or you don't want to look stupid in front of your boss or your peers? It's all these sort of things can really start to uncover genuine user needs, and when you really understand those needs, you can start to address them by either building a solution or looking at the deeper root cause of that. Like you were saying, Erin, it might not be anything to do with learning, it might not be anything to do with the content, it could be there's a cultural issue that you need to address. And I think that's where the role of what we do is changing, and that's where we can really start to make a difference and say to people, this is not just about UX design in a digital context or creating a great face-to-face experience, it's actually about deeply understanding that whole employee experience and that whole user experience end to end, from getting up in the morning to going to bed at night. How do people feel about work, and how does what we do change that? Please do. Not always well at first. I think a lot of, to be honest, a lot of it is sort of relationship building and building understanding and coaching people along this journey and helping them to understand, not that you're just saying the users don't want it, we're not going to do it, because we would never do that, but really understanding both the business need and the user need. So the business need, so I currently at the moment am working in financial services, working in Aviva, which is sort of transforming into a fintech, and what we're trying to do is support people, yes, in their day-to-day lives and help them to develop in their careers and progress, but we also have a lot of regulatory requirements as well. So sometimes the business will come to you and they will say, this is a regulatory need. The FCA actually needs us to be able to report on this and to make sure that we are supporting our people with it. The user might say, well, I don't care. And I think in that context, there's different, I'm sure no one would, but sometimes you might come up against that. But I think in that situation there are different things that we can do, and this is sort of moving away from UX a little bit and more into learning design. But if someone doesn't care about something, there are things that we can do using techniques from marketing to using nudge theory to sort of nudge behaviour in different directions, using storytelling to really connect with someone on an emotional level to help them to care about that. So it's not so much about saying we're not going to do this, but it's about saying we're going to do this in a different way, or there might be a different solution that can help. So, do you want me to go first, Owen? Yeah. So for me, UX is a philosophy. It's sort of a holistic approach. It's about having that sort of deep understanding of your user and user needs. And for me, so when I say UX, obviously I mean user experience. For me, UI, so user interface design, is part of the product that we create using that philosophy. So I've been in conversations in the past where people have said, but the UX is great, and what they mean is they mean the graphic design, that they've made it look great, or the colour looks nice, or it works on well, it doesn't work on a mobile but looks good on a mobile. I think for me it's about using principles to design with the user in mind to create something that's useful and that adds value to people at the end of the day. I think it's useful to think of products when you're using user experience design principles to create stuff. So it's useful to move away from thinking about I'm going to develop a piece of learning and instead thinking I'm going to create a product for our users, and using things like agile methodologies to develop those and having a product management mindset to do that. I think for me it's about distinguishing between the two and saying UX isn't a thing, UX is a way. If you like. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give an example of a product that I worked on when I was at BP. So I worked as part of a team that developed a video channel called The Hub. And The Hub was basically a collection of videos that were user-generated content, curated content, and content that we created as a team. And it was designed to facilitate knowledge sharing and knowledge retention within the business and to help people to share stories and experiences. What we did when we developed The Hub is that we started with the user. We didn't start with the idea that TED Talks and YouTube are quite cool, we want to build a video channel. We actually went out to the business and we said, what are your problems? What can we help fix? What are you worried about on a day-to-day basis? And people said things to us like, We're really worried that people are retiring and they're taking loads of knowledge with them. We're worried that we're working really globally and it's hard to share experiences. We need to do stuff and we don't always have time to go on a training course or to sit and read through a huge manual. We just sometimes need a YouTube style video to help us to get stuff done. So we listened to what people were trying to do, and we then use that to really say, okay, what can we create that's valuable? How are we going to make this useful? What technology do people have access to? How do they live their day-to-day lives? So one of the sort of most interesting things that I did as part of the hub development was actually going to spend time with people working in different roles. So yeah, there were people in offices, but I also went out to refineries, worked with people who were sort of doing asset management in Canary Wharf, sort of the traders, and really spent time with everybody across the organisation, a really good cross-section, and deeply understood sort of how technology fit into their day-to-day lives and how we might be able to use that to create something that might be helpful. And then took those principles and used agile product management methodologies to build that, and worked with a fantastic team to do that. Very diverse, yeah. There was a massive sort of spread actually. So it was less about saying to people, would you watch video if we made video, and more about saying what challenges do you have, and then understanding what they had access to and how we could get content to them that would be helpful. There was a massive difference. So, for example, I didn't actually get to go out and visit a rig, but we had challenges like people on rigs have satellite internet connection that is sometimes only up for 90 minutes a day. It's sort of worse than 3G. There's terrible bandwidth. There were people who just said, look, don't have time for any of this. And we would then say to them, well, what do you do if you've got a problem? And they said to us, well, we Google it. So did we have time? Could we create something that was as helpful as and as quick as and as seamless as Google? And I think that's where we are with learning and UX design today. We have to be as simple and as seamless as Google, or as seamless and simple as asking the person next to you. And if we're not, then no one is going to engage with it. Gone are the days when people have got an hour to sit and do a piece of e-learning. People need it now, and they need it in a way that fits into their lives. Yes. Completely agree. And I think that's where the magic is, isn't it? It's someone has taken the time to deeply understand where the problem is and what the problem is. So they've said, right, loads of people are signing up, but they're not going back into the channel. Let's create a way to make it really easy for them to do that. And I think that's the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves. How can we identify those problems, and how can we just make people's lives easier? I think that is an absolutely key point. Definitely agree, Owen. So speaking to people, absolutely number one thing that you can do today. You can literally do it after this podcast finishes, and just go away and speak to users and find out what's on their minds. But we have to validate it, and user testing is a brilliant way to do that. So we can use data to validate it. We can use what we know from our analytics software. So if we've got Google Analytics on a digital product, we can use that. But user testing is just so eye-opening. It's absolutely transformative. So the first time I did it, we'd sort of developed a customer journey, and I sat and thought, well, we've got this right, it looks great, check that out, beautiful image that we've done, and this is a video that we've got in there, and we sat and asked people to perform the simplest of tasks, and it didn't work. And you feel a bit disheartened at first. You're like, oh, my hard work, that's really, really tough. But actually, that is such a gift to be able to sit and see someone struggle with what you've created and be able to go away and change it and iterate and make it better. So I would say absolutely speak to people, but validate that, because what people say they do and what they actually do are often wildly different. In terms of speaking to people, there's a really useful model that I use whenever I'm starting to try and understand what user needs are. It's called the Concern Task Resource Model, and I can share a link that we can put in the notes of the podcast if that's helpful. But essentially, all you're doing is you're saying to people, what worries you, what tasks do you have to do that relate to whatever the question is in mind, and then using those two things, mapping out what resources or what solutions might be helpful to them. It's super simple. It takes you sort of an hour, 90 minutes tops to have that conversation, but I've yet to be in a situation where that hasn't produced something that's been useful for people. What have I learned this week? So I actually tweeted about this a couple of days ago, and I suppose it's maybe more of an observation really, and perhaps something that doesn't come as news to any of us listening. But my sort of key observation of the week has been that learning really doesn't have to be fun. It doesn't have to be shiny, and it doesn't have to be sexy. And I've sort of had that view for a while, because very often when you sort of receive a brief, people will say, we want to make this learning really fun and engaging, and it's like, do we actually really need to make it fun? Does it need to be fun, or does it just need to be useful? And the sort of event that sort of prompted this reflection was I'm working with an amazing bunch of graduates at the minute on social learning, so looking at how we can facilitate their knowledge sharing and them creating peer-to-peer connections. It's a graduate community that's global, so there's obviously a big need to use technology to connect people together. So we were doing pieces of work to sort of understand the need and figure out how we could possibly do this, and looking at all the different technology considerations that we had. And whilst we were doing that, it turns out that they'd already figured it out, and they were just using WhatsApp. So they'd already done it, and the user experience was great. They didn't need anything built, and they didn't need to do anything. So I think that for me was a nice reality check. It actually said, actually we can sometimes get wrapped up in our own sort of little world of learning and creating stuff, and get distracted by the stuff that is shiny and new and sexy and innovative. But sometimes innovation lies sort of in the places where you look every day. So we all know WhatsApp is seamless, it's super easy, and yeah, they're going great guns on it. So they will be doing some other cool stuff as well around social learning. But yeah, I think if a solution works and it's working for people, then let's champion it. Let's help them to bring that to life, rather than trying to sort of reinvent the wheel. So I have a view on this, and I've spoken to sort of quite a few of my peers and colleagues about it, that I think the way that learning is going is that we are sort of eliminating the need for a lot of learning. So if you think about Google, we Google our way through life, we use that to help us to our day-to-day basis. I have lived in London 5 years. I could not find my way to half the places I go to without using Citymapper or Google Maps. So we're sort of removing the need to remember stuff, and we know that sort of pushing content into people's heads doesn't work. We know that around 65% of what people hear in training is forgotten within a week. So I think we're moving towards this model of performance support, and I think that's where user experience design really comes into its own, is that we're creating a really seamless way for people to pull what they need when they need it, and they don't have to remember it. They've got the app in the pocket, or they've got the directions right there in front of them. They don't need to be sort of remembering things. So I think it is a tension, and I think there'll always be a need to for people to learn, and a desire for people to learn. I think it is genuinely a passion for people, but I think if we can take some of the friction and the pain away from people for the little things, they can actually focus on the bigger things that are going to make a real difference. At Gem Sent Gem, Gem ST Gem. Cool, thank you so much, guys. No, that was brilliant. That is exactly what performance support is. That's what that's good. So your tutor is doing good UX design. They are making it easier for you to get to the goal of making that tune. So I'm super impressed with that. But you could play any tune if they told you the notes, right? Love it, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. Oh, and luckily my phone just started ringing then as we finished recording. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Was that all right?